Well, I guess we're ready to go. Just let me start up my StarCraft 2 music real quick. Guys, and welcome everybody to Alpha X Series number 9. I'm going to join the call with my co-caster here for today. It's gonna be F equals MA. So guys,
Howdy.
well, I think they can hear you just fine actually. I was a little scared the audio wasn't going to be like super right, but I think it is. Well, the guys are ready to go. They're just waiting for us to start and get into our first game for today. So why don't we just let them? Of course, best of 9. First map is going to be Nightshade for Zoun versus DynaMite. Anything to say about the series?
I'm pretty stoked. Of course, I'm rooting for Zoun, being from Alpha X and being a Protoss player myself. But I'm excited to see the series as it plays out.
Well, I mean, I already read something in the chat, like Nightshade. I had to choose the first map for this series, and I chose Nightshade. And well, you know, Nightshade is just a chill map, a standard map. I don't think I've ever seen a best of 5 series in which not a single game is on Nightshade, but Zoun thinks this is a Terran map.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's not like super favored one race versus the other. Zoun, yeah, per the comment you mentioned, he thinks it's that way. But let's go ahead and hop in here. We'll introduce our 2 players.
Of course. Here, spawning in a bottom right-hand corner, as the blue Protoss heading from Alpha X, it is Zoun.
And in the top left, we have our red Terran player representing DLG. It is DynaMite.
Well. You know, both players are actually kind of aggressive. So I don't really think they're going to go nuts on the first map here, especially on Nightshade. But you know what they say, you can expect anything in a best of 9.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, with best of 9, if we end up going all the way through, the players will get a chance to replay some of the maps, just based on the function of the number of maps in the pool. So
of course.
it'll be fun to see what maps the players kind of pick, like the order and how they kind of utilize those maps to gain advantages over one another.
Yeah, I mean, I already see a pretty funny here pathing from this probe out of Zoun. I'm not too sure if this probe is actually trying to scout for proxies, or if it has something in mind. He's heading into the main of DynaMite, but it has taken quite a weird path.
Yeah, it's certainly gone around the SCV, so DynaMite's SCV not seeing it, and it actually has turned around now. Let's see, we'll have to tell what it does after this core finishes.
It is indeed acting funny. I will be surprised not to see anything, but it seems like nothing is gonna show up yet. Maybe it could be that Zoun changed his mind, but this is a funny move over here. Locking the Rex with a pylon so that it doesn't get a reactor out. But yeah, not the biggest of deals, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, spending 25 minerals to delay that reactor a little bit could totally be worth it.
It could be, yeah.
Think that Reaper slow down, and of course, because he sent that weird pathing, he's caused DynaMite to send his SCV all over the place, scouting for the potential.
This is already like very interesting. Like the mind games in game 1 usually are not that you know, complicated, but they are already setting up for some very chess-like series from the start. We see Zoun actually starting off the series with a Stargate play. I guess it kinda makes sense, especially on Nightshade, but I will be surprised if he decides to go deep into Stargate tech.
Yeah, certainly. And we have that Phoenix coming out. It's interesting, you know, typically we'll see like an Oracle to try to get in there and get a couple of kills. The Phoenix is not quite as aggressive. He's probably going to pool a few of them and then run in once he has critical mass and he can lift up and kill a bunch of workers all at once.
Yeah, actually, of course, Reaper and Alien trying to get some scouting information. They are going to see the Stargate play out of Zoun. They're also going to see the first Phoenix and the second one being produced. So basically, DynaMite knows exactly what his opponent is up to. He immediately starts Viking as well to deny a little bit of damage and scouting out of those Phoenixes. But he will keep on going with his plan. It seems like he's going heavy into Marines, adding more racks, and maybe a couple of Widow Mines to just top it all off.
Yeah, kind of, getting a little bit of everything. He's got all 3 production structures. Opening with the 111 allows you to get something of every tier, and he's certainly going to go ahead and abuse that privilege.
Zoun still not completely convinced his opponent is not doing anything too aggressive. He has sent his Phoenixes in quite a funny scouting pattern, looking for any proxies. He's still looking for some proxies, some maybe hidden medevac or something such as that, but he won't find any. DynaMite playing a pretty defensive game overall.
Yeah, for sure. And this one Phoenix is gonna run right in the path. Ooh, he has found
a lot of damage.
The Widow Mine. Now this technically is a Widow Mine for free, but that Phoenix is pretty close to death.
Yeah, also like what Zoun was thinking right there, but it's probably a little bit scary to just commit. Like right now, he's just taking a little bit more time. DynaMite knows these Phoenixes are actually coming right now, and he has his units positioned exactly where they need to be. I think overall, it was a worthy Widow Mine.
Oh, 100%. And, Zoun poking in, getting the one SCV, pulling back. I think both players, you kind of expect maybe 1 or 2 workers here or there with the harass. But being able to deflect is pretty strong.
Also, finally, we see Zoun diving into that AoE tech with Colossi and extended thermal lance. Of course, very much needed against Bio in any form, either Colossi, Disruptors, or Storm. You gotta try to rush that tech, otherwise any mid-game fight will not go in your favor. But he's still trying to be proactive with his Phoenixes. Doesn't look like he wants to stay home.
For sure. And if we look at the vision of Zoun right now, he's got that observer placed in its, folded out form, and he can see all of these Marines wandering past. So he knows that he needs some form of AoE to be able to take care of all these Marines that are going to start streaming across the map here. He sees the move out with that observer.
Yeah. And I have to say, Zoun scouting this game has been pretty insane. Of course, seeing the SCVs moving out, almost catching that tank up. This was Zoun basically has perfect information right now, but can he hold this? That's a whole different beast right now. Extended Thermal Lance is not done. Phoenixes get recalled. Those Phoenixes need to go on top of the Medivacs and the tank. But this is starting to look rough for Zoun.
Yeah, almost wish he'd used those Phoenix to kind of like slow down. Okay, picking up the tanks really well done here.
Very good job over here by Zoun. Of course, zoning those tanks up for a lot of time. These Marines did have a lot of shots on the Phoenixes, managing to get the kill, but the Colossi did a lot of work on top of those Marines. Sorry for interrupting there.
No, definitely, by all means. Right now, units lost favoring Zoun a little bit, but these tanks are going to keep shelling out.
With the Immortal alive, it's a little bit too difficult for DynaMite to break this through. One Immortal survives, and it's much more than enough to kill all those tanks, as well as this one Colossus helping with the fight. As soon as Extended Thermal Lance was done, the fight was basically over. Zoun just had a little bit too much damage, a little bit too much AoE, but DynaMite wants to make it work even more. He tries to go for a drop, but he doesn't find any. DynaMite is in real danger right now. He's in a pretty rough spot.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the workers tab, we've got DynaMite down at 33 workers to Zoun's 58. The longer this game goes on, the more that income advantage will favor Zoun.
Especially once you actually realize that DynaMite's army supply is basically 6 medivacs and a bunch of marines. It doesn't really look good. He gets a lot of probes, but he needs to get way more to come back into this game. Zoun has a third base, almost completely saturated. DynaMite doesn't look like he wants to expand. Once you all in, don't forget to all in, said a very wise man once. And DynaMite is certainly not forgetting to all in, but I don't think he can make it.
Yeah, the longer this drags out, I think the more and more it favors Zoun. I mean, he picked off 8 more workers with that drop, but he ended up losing 27 when he pulled the boys at the beginning. Here comes another drop.
This one was going a little bit too much forward. Those Hulkers don't have Blink yet. Blink is in progress. But here, I don't think that DynaMite is taking a really good engagement. Those tanks doing a lot of job. But the army of DynaMite is completely annihilated. GG gets cold and Zoun gets game number 1.
Yeah, well played by both players. Zoun, excellent defense there, kind of reading what was happening. That observer giving him all the information that he needed. And he was able to pull it off.
Also, I just have to say that while I actually really like the strategy from Terran to actually pull the boys and go for a very proactive kind of tactic, I still think that Zoun really badly outplayed his opponent. I really have to say it was looking quite one-sided after a certain point. Even though it wasn't really that one-sided, I think that Zoun made all the right moves. So a very deserved victory here in game number 1 overall. So we're waiting for DynaMite to choose the second map. He's going to go on Simulacrum once again, not really surprised. It was either going to be Simulacrum or Eternal Empire. I don't really see much of another choice. Still going to play it safe on maps you know well. And I think it makes a lot of sense for him to choose this map.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, we're ready to go. The guys are eager to play. I guess the starting of a best of 9 series with a victory is really important for the mindset, but it's far from being an important advantage over here for Zoun. It's just one game. He needs to win 4 more. There's still a long way to go to get a victory in this series. But so it is for DynaMite. Now let's see who's gonna get a little bit of momentum here on Simulacrum.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the players kind of mind game each other in this match as well. The first one, Zoun did some stuff, but let's go ahead and introduce our players here.
Do you want to start?
Of course, we'll start in the top left. We have our blue Alpha X Protoss player. Coming in off of a victory in the first game, it is Zoun.
And here, spawning in the bottom right hand corner instead, it's the red Terran trying to tie up the score and gain that little bit of momentum we were talking about. It is DynaMite playing for DLG Esports, of course. Once again, Zoun with a little bit of a weirder pathing for his probe, but I guess it's just to maybe trick his opponent into thinking that's something a little bit more scary. Of course, an NG Bay block over here by DynaMite. Why not? This could lead very well into battlecruiser play, by the way, but I'm just flying with my imagination right now, right?
Of course. I mean, we all love to see a battlecruiser. It definitely is something we could see happen, but it's always exciting to see fun capital ships coming out and late game tech units. Probe coming out does see that nearly completed NG Bay.
Yeah, and it must be so frustrating, right? Like, I don't think there is a worse feeling than having to actually take your natural in the third base or anything similar. Of course, I'm a zero player, so that's even worse for me. Like, This is full PTSD, right?
Very triggered at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But Zoun is a Protoss player. He can place his buildings wherever he wants, and this probe, I think it's up to no good. Of course, the Reaper just scouts it immediately after us. Ender probe just dies. Well, we call it caster curse for a reason, right?
Of course, of course. As soon as you say something, the players will inevitably make you look like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's their job to do it, right? Well, the NG Bay will finally be cleared by Zoun's units. The Reaper will indeed show up and try to get a little bit of scouting information, of course. Zoun has everything he needs home to deflect his Reaper Rust, and DynaMite is just going to have a safety bunker back home just to avoid anything too weird happening. I'm also probably going to think that he's going to make a Cyclone. Of course, once you actually deny like the macro opener from your opponent, you always have to kind of prepare for an all-in. So I think a Cyclone will be a very wise choice from DynaMite.
Yeah, I almost wish he poked. I almost wish he poked a little bit farther with the Reaper just to get the gas count on the main base, and then hop out the backside. But I totally understand the idea of not wanting to lose that Reaper to the Stalker. I think either way it works. But at this point, he's like a little bit.
Scouting like these two gateways over here is a little bit more important than scouting the gas back then. But even then, like probably once you see the double gas, I mean, you know it's going to be the Twilight Council, right? It cannot really be much else.
For sure, for sure.
He's going to be a tank, actually, for defense out of DynaMite, who's also a little bit of a supply block over here. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I noticed that a supply depot is coming down right now, but the Viking was slowed down by a few seconds there.
Not a big deal as long as this is not going to be any kind of Word Prism, earlier Ras, or Phoenix build. So it's not going to hit him that bad, but still a supply block is always a supply block. Zoun looking to scout something of his own, while DynaMite is sending a little battalion out of his base.
Yeah, I think that it's really nice because the Reaper saw the Phoenix. He was able to kind of move those Marines and tanks around the way out of the sight of that hallucinated Phoenix. Wise play from DynaMite.
I think Zoun kind of expects something because he's moving his units in a little bit of a funny way. He's also making a shield battery. Actually, a shield battery is in the main base. Actually, he probably didn't know at all. But yes, Blink, there's a kind of a good number of units. He has to actually accept some losses over here, though. Because this contain is looking a scary one.
Yeah, I think the way that those units kind of pathed around the Stalkers on the outside, that wasn't ideal. This tank's gonna kind of set up here.
Yeah, that's F-dived on top of the tanks to gain a little bit of friendly fire, but the tanks are kind of too stable. The bunker actually finishes, and the contain is not yet totally deflected over here by Zoun. He's actually losing a lot of army. DynaMite has doubled the army supply.
Yeah, both players trading their army for this engagement. But because the bunker is up, the tank will then be able to get set up, and I think DynaMite has the foothold here that he kind of wanted. There's no SCVs to repair.
Also, like, a very important thing over here is that DynaMite kind of forced Zoun into a reaction that doesn't really work right here. He forced Zoun to actually rush for charge, while over here you want to get into Robo Bay, or maybe into High Town Plus. You want to get your tech down, but Zoun simply couldn't. He couldn't get on the aggressive side with his Stalkers, with Blink, and now he has to defend this, and he needs charge to do it. He needs Immortals. And he needs some prayers as well, because this isn't looking good at all.
Yeah, as the Terran units continue to stream over here, getting a second tank allow them to kind of slowly start leapfrogging forward.
And with a Medivac, DynaMite can get some cheap damage even more forward and just retreat into safety once he thinks enough damage has been dealt. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Getting this
Charge
pylon
is
will be
huge.
very important actually. Charge is, yeah, as you said, is like a few seconds from being done. A Warp Prism is almost up as well to set up a surround, but his Nexus is dangerously low on health. Zoun needs to make a move and he decidedly do so. The Medivac is almost down, one of the tanks is down, the Immortal is going to clear the tanks, and Immortals are just that good. His bunker is going to fall. The deflection has been made from Zoun. This contain is no more, but at what cost?
Yeah, a lot of army going down from both players. And if we look at the units lost tab, pretty even. I mean, the gas is identical between the two players. And if we look at the Protoss player having lost about 250 more minerals, but that's, you know, not a huge amount at this stage in the game.
What I'm really scared about is that without enough area of effect damage, if this push doesn't actually deal devastating damage right here, I think Zoun will be finding himself quite behind in tech. And tech is a very important thing in this matchup.
I completely agree. You know, either a Robo Bay or the Templar Archives, some sort of follow-up AoE would be nice, but it looks like he is going to get the damage that he wants here.
Yes. These command centers are running dangerously low. Some force fields are going to prevent the army of DynaMite from moving too comfortably close, and the Zealots will try to get some good bits of damage. The Stalkers are trying to do their best, but the Marauders, of course, very good against what Zoun has brought at the doorsteps of the Terran base. And they indeed are dealing so much damage, so many Marauders. And once again, 22 SCVs have fallen down for DynaMite, so the game isn't over yet. But what has Zoun back home to deal with these many Marauders? Disruptors are kind of needed in this scenario, and once again, that tech we were talking about is going to be very rough for Zoun to live without it.
Yeah, I mean, the worker count is very slightly favoring Zoun, but the army supply definitely leaning towards DynaMite. It's going to come down to whether or not he can hold this counterattack.
The Widowmines are establishing themselves in quite a forward position over here. Zoun doesn't really have a hold between his natural and fur base, and that is what DynaMite needs to really end the game. Zoun has no safe place from which to warp in his units here and try to deflect this army. He has no real tech to do it. So many probes are dying. Zoun doesn't probably know he's dead behind yet, but he probably knows that this game is over. DynaMite gets the tie here in game number 2.
Very well done, kind of trading that fight there and going for the counterattack. Definitely put DynaMite in a good position and gave him the ability to take the win there.
It was a very interesting game. I'd say, like, it was played quite in a different way from both players. I think that in game 1 there was like the Protoss player was much more proactive, and with the scouting information he actually got, he was able to prevent any very aggressive play from coming on top from his opponent. But over here, it didn't really work out because the play was that much earlier from DynaMite.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. The next map is going to be Golden Wall, which is one of the newer maps. I guess we'll have to see how the players do. You know, Sim, the last map was certainly a map that we've seen before. Nightshade,
yeah,
also from the previous set. So this map, the players have played on a little bit less, but I'm sure they both have something in store for us.
I'm trying to set up your name on the overlay, but it isn't really easy. Like, I will probably be doing that a little bit later. But
yeah,
anyway,
we'll go ahead and introduce the characters.
Of course.
Yeah, all right. Well, spawning in the bottom left The Protoss player gonna try to recover from this previous game. It is our blue Alpha X representative, Zoun.
And instead, in the bottom right hand corner, spawning as the red Terran, just tying up the score in a very, very convincing game number 2 on Simulacrum. It is DynaMite. So I have to say this, like, I've seen DynaMite play recently in a series against TY on Golden Wall, and he was so good at exploiting like the pathway, the southern pathway on this map. He was exploiting it with cyclones and drops and ravens, and he just basically outplayed TY, and it's something that doesn't really happen that often. So I'm a little bit scared for Zoun. He really needs to make something happen, because Golden Wall is a very chess-like map. You have to have a pretty clear plan in mind, but even then, it is Zoun who chose this map. So I think he has something in mind indeed.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like Zoun's gonna go ahead and, get the fast Nexus. Just got his core coming down. I think it's pretty standard.
Yeah, of course it's pretty standard. Trying to be a little annoying with his probe, but this probe is not going home, not yet. I don't know if for a proxy or for a further scouting. I think it is a proxy.
Yeah, it's a very unusual place to kind of stash your probe.
Yeah.
The Reaper gonna look for it. We'll see if it can find the probe.
I don't think he will. Like, as you said, that's a very, very unusual place to keep your probe. It could be just a place to hide it and go for a further scouting, maybe waiting for the Reaper to move out, but the Reaper, oh my god, didn't move out quite yet. So, yeah. Zoun hiding his probe back on this safe spot, while DynaMite is gonna go forward with the Reaper. So it is once again Twilight Council. I guess it's the safer opener for Protoss versus Terran. Getting that blink, it's of course very important to gain a little bit of map control, and I think it is the reason why Zoun is going to go for a Stalker first, or Stalker second, sorry. So
yeah. after
the Adept, of course. Yeah, sure.
The necessary Adept.
Yeah. Blink gets started, as well as Steam, and actually DynaMite going for a 2-1-1. This is a little bit weird. Like, I mean, it can really work wonders on this map, because dropping in the main is actually very, very easy on Golden Wall. But you don't see 2-1-1s that often for a reason, and that reason is every single player in StarCraft history has played against the 2-1-1 at least 200 times in their lifetime. So I think that with Blink Stalkers, 2-1-1 kinda doesn't have a place in the current meta, but maybe DynaMite can make me think twice.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage obviously that Blink has is that Stalkers outrange the Marines, allowing you to kite, as long as you catch them on the other side of the map, kite all the way back and let you get a ton of damage before the push even hits you. But as you mentioned, this backside with the weird mineral wall might allow a little bit of play for DynaMite to get something done here.
It looks like Zoun is keeping a pocket of units back in the main. He's already making shield batteries at the natural to keep it safe while expanding at the third base. Looks like Zoun wants to play it as lower as possible. I think he kind of realized last game the problem was he didn't really quite manage to get his macro straight. And over here tries to be proactive with scouting with this hallucinated Phoenix. But 2-1-1, it's very early. At 5 minutes, those two medivacs are already halfway through the corridor. And
the Stalkers are on the other side of the map, so these medivacs might be able to get something done. The Nexus in the main. Yeah, the Nexus in the main at 48 energy, 49, just about enough to recall.
Yeah, no recall issued yet. Here it is, here it comes. Finally, the recall gets started over here by Zoun, but the damage has already been dealt. 8 probes are down, even in the workers' amount. Those Marines are going to sacrifice their lives for some tiny bits of damage. One Medivac runs dangerously low, but manages to escape with its life. Those Stalkers are trying to blink forward to get on top of this Medivac, and they will do so. The other Medivac actually survives. That's a lot of dead airspace here on Golden Wall, and the Medivac will fly into safety. 8 probes down.
Yeah.
Not bad.
8 probes falling. Definitely, I think the damage that DynaMite was looking for here with that drop. You're losing 1 Medivac and a few Marines. If we take a look at the workers lost, all total, the Reaper fell at some point. I'm not sure how many of the Marines fell before this, but 10 Marines total and 1 Medivac. Definitely a lot less than the 8 probes, 2 Stalkers, Sentry, etc. that has fallen for Zoun.
And it's crazy how close Zoun got to scouting the all-in from DynaMite, seeing the SCVs moving out. His observer just barely didn't see it. I also think it's funny how he has eaten the probe all the way from the start of the game and didn't manage to get a second scout over here. I think that's a little bit too much Darren, I'd say. The stream of units running through the map, the tanks are well sieged. Besides the natural, and what has Zoun to deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, with those 2 tanks, with the 2 tanks sieged and the Immortal not out yet, this is going to be a very difficult hold for Zoun.
Yeah, and this Immortal will never be out because the Robo has been unpowered, and right now the tanks can just focus the army probes getting into the fight as well. No bunker, a very good surround coming from Zoun from 2 different sides, but Marine doesn't care about surrounds, and DynaMite gets game number 3 here on Golden Wall.
Yeah, the damage output of Marines is incredibly high, allowing him to kind of, take down those Stalkers as they tried to blink forwards. Well done by DynaMite.
Well done indeed by DynaMite, who was able to actually blindside his opponent the whole match. I think it's kind of interesting, the way he actually outplayed his opponent. Once again, through just mind play, playing a very, very unusual build in the sense that it has been playing so much that it isn't played anymore. So with the 2-1-1, actually, DynaMite gets the victory in game number 3. Very impressive over here. The last 2 games from DynaMite, I think, were kind of impressive indeed.
For sure. All right, looks like both of our players are ready. And we're going to hop into Purity and Industry.
And I actually managed to get your name into the overlay. I'm very proud of myself.
Oh, I see that. Very well done. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for chiming into this cast 10 minutes before we actually started.
Of course, I definitely I get the feeling, casting solo is a thing you can do, but it's always fun to have a buddy.
Yeah, it's just less funny, right?
Of course.
It's better to have someone always. But let's get into introduction, and I want to do this guy first because I did it in game 1. You won. Who knows? Maybe it's luck, right? Spawning in the right hand side of Purity and Industry is the blue Protoss player heading from Korea, playing for Alpha X. It is Zoun.
And spawning in the light side of the map, top center, we have our red Terran player representing DLG. It is DynaMite.
Okay, Purity and Industry. This map is crazy. This map is all kinds of nuts. And DynaMite is already getting to gas, by the way. I don't want to be and he's walling off. Okay, he's not even going into the natural. What he's doing?
So it looks like he did the partial wall here to kind of block Zoun from knowing that he has taken this early gas.
He's up to no good, that's for sure.
I am almost certain that we will see some sort of flying unit fly across this close spawn by air. I think I watched someone time it earlier. It's somewhere around 18 to 20 seconds for boosted medevacs to make it across these slow zones.
It's 35% decrease in speed. So you just have to like imagine this area between the two bases is like 1/3 bigger. And that's all. So it's just a very short rush distance anyway. It's just very, very unsafe to retreat. Like once you commit, you have to fully commit because your units are not going to take a good engagement on the Babilas, as Artosis will call it.
Yeah, medevacs are not going to escape from Phoenix, etc., etc., etc.
So Zoun is going to find the reactor and the Wolof.
But he doesn't see the starport and factory in the backside, and it's important to note that that factory is making a tech lab. So I'm wondering if we're going to see some banshees or something.
It was
like
exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll wait for the players to confirm. Of course, we were talking about the caster curse earlier.
Yeah, sure.
But
it is a cyclone, just maybe to deflect any attempt of scouting. But DynaMite is still not expanding, is not even making a command center to maybe float into the island in the top right. So he's kind of committed right now, I think. Like, you don't make this many units this early to not go all in. DynaMite is certainly going to all in very shortly. And Zoun, he kind of knows. Double shield battery, he's making a lot of units. A lot of gateways. He's going to know what is coming.
He's kind of posturing, gearing up for the defense here. Medevac is going to start making its way across the slow zone here, and the Cyclone picks off the probe that was kind of scouting.
Of course, I really like DynaMite actually taking like the clever path to take a little bit less time. It really makes him well committed. But this shield battery is actually going to get targeted down by the Cyclone and the Marines. Of course, the units of Zoun are going to take quite a good engagement over here. And I don't think there is much to be lost for Zoun. Of course, the shield battery falls down, but two more gets dropped by the Protoss player. Now an Immortal is out as well. The Cyclone locked on a Stalker, didn't find a lot of damage. Now an Hallucinated Phoenix is making its way through the map, and we see DynaMite actually expanding, but I think he has to deal way more damage. Sentries are going to get locked on, but they will not fall thanks to the 3 shield batteries. This Immortal is very, very healthy, and so isn't the army of DynaMite, which has to retreat back home. So Banshee Cloak, get started. In the end, you were right, my friend.
We'll see if that ends up making up the difference here. Because the robo is done, we do have an observer from Zoun slowly making its way over. It's gonna kind of see the expansion and kind of make its way in. It should see the glowing... Oh, actually, the Banshee Cloak gets cancelled here, I think.
Yes, it does. And Zoun is just gonna do the elevator into the main base of DynaMite, and there is just one tank that needs to be unsieged, and with one Immortal out, Zoun has literally everything he needs to close out this game. The tank is in a very good spot, but is not sieged to avoid too many SCVs from falling down, but too many are already falling. 17 SCVs down. Of course, if Zoun is able to save the Immortal as well, this would have been a perfect attack, but I think the Immortal will indeed fall, or maybe not, because the Cyclone is down, but so is the Warp Prism, but so is everything DynaMite has basically. 5 workers, just a Banshee. What you can do with this army right here, DynaMite is going to go for the desperate Hail Mary, but he doesn't have anything to work with.
I mean, at this point in time, DynaMite's working off of, Heart of the Swarm legacy, the Void worker counts. This Banshee and this Medevac are gonna have to do some incredible things.
Yeah, Zoun also has 4 Stalkers into the main of DynaMite, and it doesn't really look like it is going to be a very strong all-in over here coming from DynaMite. I think his build order was all kind of messed up, but so is Purity and Industry, and he tried to go for the weird strat. It didn't work off really well, but overall, I think it was still pretty clever. It wasn't just quite refined enough. Like, there wasn't just enough stuff for DynaMite to actually make a dent into Zoun's defenses.
Yeah, and as we climb into Everdream here, I think while that looked clunky from DynaMite, I can totally see how if things had gone a little bit differently, you know, getting that Cyclone to pick off a few things here and there would allow him to get some major damage done.
Yeah, I actually agree. Like, with 2 Cyclones out that early into the game, like, you know, imagine a scenario in which you make 2 tanks instead, and like, those 2 tanks will not do anything because there's not enough army in front of them. But 2 Cyclones can actually be very deadly in the way they can chip safely at the army count of your opponent without actually taking any damage. And what I actually think it was that DynaMite was a little bit too eager to get in and do the damage. I really liked the first move to get the shield battery, and maybe if he tried to go for more of those picks, maybe we would have talked about a different game.
Yeah, for sure. As it stands, though, we do have our players in this next thing. You want to kick us off by introducing the first player?
Of course, why not? Spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Everdream, the blue Protoss player hailing from Korea, playing for Alpha X and just tying up the score. It is Zoun.
And in the top right, the red Terran player representing DLG, we have DynaMite. So game 4, you know, game 5, excuse me, we're a little bit through the series so far. Nothing too crazy from these players in terms of an opening.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see anything abnormal? Any break from traditional openings?
You know, that, like, a thing I always think about when I see like best of 9s being even is like, if I were one of the players right now, I would think, okay, the best of 5 starts now, and you just completely reset your mentality, right? So actually, I think that the more you go into the series, the less the chance of something too crazy showing up from someone of those 2 players rise. Like, I think they are not going to go for something too aggressive unless they get like a 4-2 scenario or maybe a 3 even score. Like, those like kind of scores in which you have to go for something a little bit more proactive. Like, DynaMite already has gone for something really weird. I think we're not going to see too much weird stuff happen.
Yeah, I think you're certainly right. I unfortunately do not read Korean, so I'm not sure what Zoun is typing in chat here.
Well,
I'm sure if players needed to, they would pause. Hoping it's just friendly banter.
It could be, like, those 2 guys know each other fairly well, so it could very much be just friendly banter. Or maybe they're mocking us, or maybe they're blaming me for lag because I come from the other side of the world, who knows? It's very possible.
Yeah, yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time as well, actually. I like a Korean game, if you want to know about it.
Oh man. We've all been there. You play on a server that's not your own. Things aren't quite as... you know, the ping isn't what you'd want it to be.
No, definitely not. Especially since my ping on Korea is like 300.
Oh.
That's definitely not good. But Zoun is going to go indeed into the more standard play Blinkstalkers, of course, to gain map control in a map such as Everdream, short map, and very, I don't know how to say, vertical map, I'd say is the right term. I think Blinkstalkers are actually the best choice because there is not a lot to fight in the middle of the map. So you can just go back and forth without having to worry too much about keeping them alive. Of course, those two adepts gaining some tiny bits of damage. One of them is gonna escape with his life. I think it was a pretty good play by Zoun overall. How many Marines have died? Yeah, it was a pretty good play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, if we look at overall units lost kind of thing, it's about even, but I think that's not quite telling the whole story. Oh, and that Hellion trying to chase down the Adept, gonna fall with the Adept escaping with 2 HP.
I didn't see it, and I feel very bad for not seeing that. I would have loved to.
The Hellions, you're trying to poke, and the Adept just turns around for a second and just kind of throws the little ball and then keeps walking. You know, cool guys don't look at explosions style. You know, turns his back and the Hellion kind of dies behind it. We'll have to see what these mines can get done inside of the main.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get a lot of damage. A very close friend of mine, like who's a pretty high level Terran player, often like mocked me about like giving too much importance to Widow Mines drops, because like he told me like a Widow Mine drop is actually less committed than any kind of drop you can do, because the Medivac is always going to escape, you are always going to kill at least 2 probes, and you are always going to get basically perfect scouting. So like the scouting information you get is much more important than the damage, is even more important than actually losing the Medivac. So over here, I think like this is a very safe way of opening in this matchup. And I think it's also the reason why Blinkstalkers have become such a staple.
For sure. I do want to point out that really clutch play that DynaMite just did.
Yeah.
Just pausing the medevac over the high ground thing so the Stalkers couldn't pick it off. And the medevac has come back in here now with that mine. It's only going to get one more worker, but you know, it does get back out with its life, and I think that would have been an otherwise dead medevac to the Blink Stalkers.
You know, just like keeping one medevac alive is going to help out in the end later on. So I think that if there is one race which really makes the most of it, keeping even little units alive, that race is Terran, because it can snowball so much over control compared to other races, with just like Medivacs not dying, Marauders not dying, Cyclones not dying, Banshees not dying, Tanks not dying, and all the kinds of it, right?
Oh, 100%. I think, you know, because Terran has the ability to kind of like heal and repair things, that adds to it. Of course, Protoss can regenerate shields, and Zerg over time regenerates their health. But like you said, the snowballing effect of Terran kind of helps allow and make retaining units so much more important.
You see a pretty strong army coming from DynaMite, doubling it down with Medivacs out of a reactor starport, getting some Widow Mines as well. But of course, once Concussive Shells is actually done, this army will suddenly become so scary. Over here, DynaMite moving with a Medivac, skimming into the third base of Zoun. He's going to get a little bit of damage, but once again, it's just one Medivac. It's not committed, it's just gaining scouting, it's just seeing what the army of your opponent consists of. And I think DynaMite is feeling good right now after seeing the army of Zoun.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, the purpose of this is almost as much to get scouting as it is to get damage done. I mean, kind of keep your opponent pinned in their base, sure,
yeah,
but
force a reaction, like tiny bits of APM not used to macro, it's always right. And DynaMite is looking to get into this tiny choke point and get as much damage as possible with the Widow Mines. A lot of Zealots actually falling down. The army of Zoun is far from weak. That's a lot of Marauders. Good force splits are going to lock some of this bio ball outside of the range of the Stalkers. But overall, I think that DynaMite can pretty much still get a lot of damage done. He's now cutting backwards on top of those Widow Mines, but the real damage has been those 10 probes actually dying over here in the natural. Finally, Zoun reacts to it, saves the remaining probes in the natural, and DynaMite just flies back home with a supply lead. But overall, the game has been quite a reset. And I think this is the moment in which like the tech race begins.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about the game has kind of been reset, but I would say that the fact that the Terran players, they're even, let alone the fact that DynaMite is up, 2-3 workers, really favors the Terran because Terrans have mules. As a Protoss player, you typically want to have the worker advantage. You're going to be chrono boosting out those probes. You want to have a few more.
I absolutely agree, and that's the reason why Zoun wants to actually counterattack. The SCVs gets pulled into this. DynaMite wants to make the best out of this, but he's losing a lot of army supply as well as worker supply. Suddenly, the supply goes in favor of Zoun, and it has been thanks to those crazy good force fields that the Protoss player was able to win this engagement. Widow Mines killing more SCVs than they kill Zealots, really. And right now, DynaMite is probably cursing himself from being greedy and taking that base over there and not the pocket next to his main.
Yeah, I mean, that was a heck of a counterattack. At this point now, Zoun is up 20 workers, when a moment ago we were talking about how DynaMite was up 2 or 3. Very good damage done by Zoun. That's exactly, I think, what Zoun was looking for here.
And I cannot really stress much how of important choice is to take either this base over here, the vertical one next to the natural, or the pocket one in front in the triangular pattern. It makes such a big difference. And with very good force fields, like the Protoss player wants to always fight here at the third that DynaMite took. And I guess it makes a little difference in most games, but in this particular game it has made such a huge difference. Those Blink Stalkers, of course, trying to get some tiny bits of damage, but the tech race is heavily in favor of the Protoss player right now, who's already getting into Storm Tech and +2 ground weapons, going to get the upgrade advantage. After scouting with DynaMite with the Widow Mines and the Medivac, of course, he's going to react with the Ghost Academy and probably Shockwave EMP after that.
For sure, and as the command center starts mining at this 33rd base again for DynaMite, Zoun is taking his 4th, throwing down a bunch more gateways, and we have a little bit of a Warp Prism harass coming up into the main of DynaMite. 4 Zealots should be dropping out.
And I really don't like this push over here by DynaMite. He's going to eat as basically immediately as Storm is done. Zoun has 4 Storms, a ton of force fields. He can, oh my god, that Storm was gigantic. The second one wasn't very good, but DynaMite really has to go for something very much different. Those Stalkers lean forward and they're going to get so much damage. DynaMite cannot come back into the game. Zoun gets back 1 point ahead in this best of 9. Oh my god.
I think as DynaMite tried to boost up and go for a Doom Drop, Zoun sniffed it out and was able to blink under and pick off 2 of those fully loaded medevacs. Definitely causing DynaMite to realize that the game was near completion.
And I really have to say, like, this game was absolutely my favorite of the series up until now, because like the amount of clever plays both those guys are doing is just insane. They're playing such a clever series. They're doing those little moves that like make a lot of difference. You notice like that like Medivac trick on the pillar to keep it alive. All these little things are like making like such a great series overall. But before we get into this next game, wait a moment. Before we get into this next game, I want to show you guys a little thing that will make such a huge difference for all of us. So let's get into my monitor. Just type over here !Matcherino into the chat to bring up this link. You just click on it, you copy the code, you sign in whichever form you wish to sign in with, and you just paste the code over here in coupon code after clicking on contribute. AXCOM71 is going to add 50 cents to the prize pool. You're just going to use 30 seconds of your time, no real money gonna be used from your pockets. It's just a coupon code. It's going to be adding money for free into the prize pool. The players will appreciate it, and if you appreciate their work, the effort they're putting into this series, I think you guys should really spend these 30 seconds of your life to help the scene, help Alpha X, and help, of course, Zoun and DynaMite.
For sure, for sure. And I think there are some extended goals as well. I mean, we have some sponsors here, you know, F-Bomb, G Fuel, 24-Hour Fitness on that page. If you do some of the Twitter follows and some of the extended things, you can contribute even more and help support these players. So we all appreciate it, and you're helping keep esports alive by doing that.
Thank you very much for everyone who actually contributed to that. And the score is currently 3-2 in favor of Zoun. So the Corodos player is slightly ahead, but a very back and forth series. Zoun was leading 1-0, then DynaMite was leading 2-1, and right now Zoun is leading 3-2 again. So, talking about him, spawning in the bottom left hand corner of Zen, you can see the base of the blue Protoss. It is Zoun.
And in the top right, representing DLG and sporting the red color, it is the Terran player DynaMite.
Okay, for the first time, actually, Zoun is going to wall off the Reaper Cliff. I mean, probably Zen is the only map that actually actively requires you to do it, because that's such an obnoxious place to have a cliff for a Reaper. And of course there is also like the little mineral wall in the natural that makes a little difference as well. And we already see DynaMite actually going for a 2 Rex opener, and I will very like Zoun to actually delve a little bit more deeper into this base. To take a look at it. Oh my god, Zoun!
Oh, he sees it. Just barely.
The probe is locked into the base and he immediately reacts in the chat as well.
As soon as the Rax gets spotted, Zoun being a little cheeky, sending out a little semicolon. I think it's supposed to be maybe a semicolon with a P for a little tongue face, but
yeah, it could be everything. This little probe is going to sacrifice its life to give back home the scouting information, but I was talking about the Reaper Cliff, but I didn't know like it was actually going to make such a big difference, because actually DynaMite is going to mass Reapers for his opener, at least for a while. I don't see a third Rax, so I don't think he's going to fully commit into it.
Yeah, instead of going for 3 Rax Reaper entirely, he is dropping the command center. But this Reaper is going to be able to certainly deny workers from coming down for a moment, and as the second Reaper comes out, the Stalker will have to start being careful.
Yeah, also, of course, like forcing a reaction, it's already a pretty important thing. Like, dropping a shield battery may look like a small thing, but it actually delays some of your important stuff by quite a while. And this Stalker is trying to battle for his life, but a third Reaper is going to chime in, and I don't think it's going to survive that easily. One Reaper actually falls, but so does the Stalker, and it's not a good trade for Zoun.
For sure. I mean, you know, the Stalker is certainly worth a lot more than the Reaper. But as the Stalker walks into the grass.
The ambush.
Yeah, it should be fine with the shield battery here.
Yeah, of course, like, forcing a reaction is good, but having a reaction to this, it's almost as good, right? saving that Stalker was actually very important. One Reaper runs dangerously low. He's going to escape with its life. The Stalkers will get some cheap damage using some of that shield battery energy. But it wasn't overall astounding damage coming from DynaMite. Blink is on the way as well as Steam Pack. Does Reaper shocking for probes right now. They're going to go for a little bit of a longer route, but they're going to get a couple probes back into the coffin with them before sacrificing themselves as well. The probes go back into the mineral line, but all the Reaper will actually die. All but one that has been kept alive for further scouting.
You know, this Reaper's certainly trying to escape out the Reaper wall on the backside, but the gateway and the pylon there preventing that from happening, of course.
It's actually pretty crazy that you can actually wall it off with just a gateway and a pylon over here. It should be 3 buildings at least, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It's really, really small, but it doesn't look
As a
like
protest player, I appreciate that it's just a gateway. And a pylon.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense for it to be like I remember some of the older maps, like Turbo Cruise, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Or maybe, yeah, something like New Tokyo, something like that, like, right? Like, yeah, Turbo Cruise 84, I think it was called. Like, there was that huge Reaper cliff into the main. You actually needed, like, a pylon, a gateway, and a cyber core to wall it off. And it was just a little bit too much. 6 SCVs have fallen to these Blink Stalkers, but so will all the Blink Stalkers, both players, sacrificing a little bit too much. And right now DynaMite has a pretty powerful army.
Yeah, and with that army, he's going to start moving across the map and see if he can make something happen.
Yeah, the real weird thing over here, we see DynaMite going for 3 racks and a factory before going for a starport. So he's going to have a ton of army, but this army is basically irreplaceable. It's not healable, any damage on top of this army is permanent. Shield batteries are going to be huge in this. The pylon is such a big important thing for Zoun, but so is the rest of his army. One Immortal is out, but it's going to be immediately annihilated by his army. A little bit too many steams have been used, so these probes can actually get into the fight and deal significant damage with the Blink Stalkers blinking forward on top of the army of DynaMite. A lot is going to fall for the Terran player, but at what cost? Back again, one Immortal has fallen, a lot of Stalkers as well, and DynaMite is still relentlessly sending units.
Yeah, I think at this point he does realize that sending them the trickle is going to start not contributing to his victories so much, and it's going to start draining him a little bit. So he pulls back a few of those units, and very good hold by Zoun.
Indeed, very good hold, but DynaMite is going to be a little bit ahead on workers. He's going to expand over here basically at the same time as his opponent. And as you said before in game 5, this is quite the advantage for a Terran player. You kind of want to be ahead in workers as the Protoss. And DynaMite was able to keep Zoun on his toes for quite a while in this game.
For sure, and you know, Scan coming in to kind of check the temperature, see, alright, what kind of stuff do we have. Stalkers, ooh, actually going to be able to pick off the SCV, so slowing down that third base just a little bit. Yeah,
it's actually more significant than it looks. Like, being able to chrono boost probes a little bit quicker than your opponent can drop mules, it's not something I really frown upon, right? Zoun has prepared these Warp Prism over here to be even more obnoxious on top of this third base. It will go down in the end, but no SCV can mine from here as long as this Warp Prism is threatening. But DynaMite is threatening a Doom drop as well. Oh, Zoun knows. He's trying to move his army in place to deal with it. One gateway will fall, so will one pylon, will empower the Cyber Core and the Twilight Council. And Zoun is only now retreating back into his main base. He has only a bunch of zealots over here. Not what he wants to have. The Stalkers bleeding forward on top of one of the medivacs. He will go down. Perfect force fields, blocking so much of the army of DynaMite. But this one medivac staying alive is the real threat right now. It's a very bruised medivac, so he has to back away a little bit. But the micro over here by Zoun has been insane, keeping so many Stalkers alive. And Zoun once again takes a lot of losses, but he's able to bite back.
Yeah, very well done by both players. Of course, you know, the Cybernetics core being unpowered, not the hugest deal. Twilight isn't terrible to have unpowered as long as you're not going for, you know, charge or blink in the middle of it. But fight in the middle happening, Stalkers poking forward and having to blink back because of the Stim Marauders and Marines do quite a bit of damage. Great force field trapping a few units.
Of course, DynaMite cannot walk through there. It would have been just a meat grinder of Terran units. He needs to find another way. Unit's positioning is so important over here. Zoun, what you doing? Why didn't you stay there? Oh god, he's trying to walk through the map. Turning this into a base trade is never good for the Protoss player. He has recall and he needs to use it. He does indeed, and right now he can fight in a pretty good spot. The robot definitely falls, and that's not a good thing, but the medivacs... sorry, were those medivacs? I don't even know. Yes, there were medivacs. I think those medivacs dealt so much friendly fire, actually.
Yeah, there are a couple of mines in there that did shoot, doing a little bit of damage there. Medivacs, you know, getting a couple of these Marauders and Marines home. Army value is about even, but I would say because the Protoss player has Immortals and Sentries mixed in there, it definitely favors the Protoss army.
It favors for now, yes. I'm 100% sure you are right. But DynaMite is getting +2/+2, is getting Ghosts, and is getting Shockwave EMP. Zoun badly needs to make something happen right now because he also lost his robot. His tech is basically non-existent. He really needs to make something happen right now, otherwise the upgrades and the ghosts out of DynaMite are just going to end the game straight up. Freedomine's in very good positions, are going to get so much damage on top of the Zealots. Good force fields are gonna prevent a lot of the army of DynaMite from actually being where it needs to be, but the perfect EMP gets off the army of Zoun, who has to retreat back into safety. But it's now or never for Zoun. He is remaking his robo. He's behind in workers, he's behind on basically everything right now. Zoun needs to go forward. EMP is halfway through. Shockwave, of course, I'm talking about. He tries to dive deeper into the base of his opponent. He definitely tries to get a lot of damage, but his army is not strong enough. The Terran clears it, and it's a GG. Another tie up coming from DynaMite. The score is 3-3.
Yeah, I think it really did come down to, you mentioned the Robo getting sniped, you know, cutting off the production of higher tech units for Zoun. I think that was probably what caused Zoun to decide to push. He was trying to throw down the Templar Archives behind it, but he needed to make something happen before he fell behind.
Also, repower the Twilight Council, like, to not having a forge as well, like, a little bit too much stuff is gonna arrive for Zoun. In the way, it was probably like forced into having too many reactions at too many different things, and he kind of forgot here and there. Like, he kind of had to cut some corners, and in the end, if there is one matchup in which you cannot really cut the corners, I think that matchup is TVP. Like, it's one of the most technical matchups in the way of a macro. Like, you have to be so precise with all your buildings, because there are some crazy spikes for both players. Like, Ghosts and High Templars and Disruptors are all some kind of spikes that if your opponent doesn't have the exact answer, the game just basically ends. And it's just what happened here. Zoun needed to make something happen, and he wasn't quite able to do so. So, why don't you start with the introductions this time?
Alright, well, spawning in the top right, we have our blue Protoss player representing Alpha X. It is Zoun.
And spawning instead in the bottom left hand corner as the red Terran. He tied the score again, looking strong with his very aggressive playstyle. It is DynaMite. Someone will say explosive playstyle. Huh. Okay, let's all forget this joke and get back into the game.
So, no, it was good. It was good.
Well,
all right.
We see Eternal Empire, like one of the most common maps in the whole pool, coming here last in his best of 9 before the last 2 or the last 1 map. And I have to say, like, Eternal Empire, it's such a Terran strong map. Like, it's so much better than every other map for Terran that it's kind of unfair in this matchup. Like, Zoun basically needs to either go Stargate or try to go into Colossi basically as quick as possible, because it's very unfair for the Protoss player to actually have a good engagement on Eternal Empire.
Yeah, the way that the map works with all the high rounds and low rounds and the kind of rock choke points, it's hard to fight unless you have some sort of either flying unit that can go past those, ignoring the obstacles, or some sort of Colossus, like you said, to do the splash damage in the chokes. So we'll see what Zoun decides to choose.
I've seen some players actually get some pretty good success with the Warp Prism speed disruptor drop play that actually ensures you have a lot of tech early on and force your opponent into a reaction, but it's a very risky play that quite often doesn't play off. That question
players
mark.
bantering here a little bit. Yeah, Zoun's adept almost picking off the Reaper there, throwing a little bit of shade, both literally because of the adept shade as well as figuratively.
Yeah, it was quite a great up play, I have to be honest. Like,
Now on the other side of the map, there's an adept kind of abusing these SCVs, keeping them from mining for a minute.
Of course, he's just gonna shade away after being obnoxious for a little bit. And DynaMite going back to the standards. Finally, we see a 1-1-1 opener for DynaMite. After quite a while, I'd say.
Okay, and good force field. Yeah.
Oh, the Sentry will fall. That's pretty bad for Zoun. Overall, you never want to lose that one Sentry, and the Reaper is still going to get pretty much full scouting. Did it see the Twilight Council? Not yet, but he will see it. He will see it chrono boosted as well. He will know it is Blink, and he will just be very convinced that his 1-1 opener was probably the best choice overall.
With that, we do see 2 more barracks getting added on. And Nexus should come down shortly. There it is from Zoun.
So, players going back to the fold. 1 NG Bay as well after the double racks drop, the 2 tech clubs. So, I really like to see some very standard TVP. Like, both players are really playing by the book right now. And, of course, good micro by Zoun. A little slow on his movements to shoo away those 2 Widow Mines, but indeed, he's only going to lose 2 probes.
Yeah, and like you said, that is just as much to kind of keep the Protoss player pinned in their base and to get a scout on what the player has, as it is to try to get workers.
Yeah, indeed. And charge is on the way for Zoun, while DynaMite is going to have his explosion of, this time it wasn't intended as a pun, his explosion of upgrades, steam, combat shields, +1 infantry weapons, and he's probably soon going to drop a fur base as well. Meanwhile, Zoun, though, dropping 5 gateways. That's quite the number. I think we never seen him drop so many gateways at once. Once again, it is kind of mandatory to have a safe backup. Like production is very important at this stage once you get a third base. But I think we've never seen him do it because we've never seen DynaMite play such a standard game until now in this series.
Yeah, he hasn't gone for kind of a more mech kind of play here. We see the bio in these mines starting to move past as he takes the third base. And this warp prism, oh okay, the warp prism was about to fly straight through that army, changing its course at the last second there.
We've also seen Zoun actually already using his recall to keep this medevac at bay. So actually this warp prism cannot be too much of an issue because Zoun needs his, oh my god, sniping that medevac is actually huge. It's actually gigantic. Those Widow Mines try to get in place, and the Widow Mines will be very important. Blink is done, and those Widow Mines will basically whip their shots. Meanwhile, in the natural, there were some Stalkers ready to fight the medevac, but there were not just many. It was just a couple, so those probes will be shooed away out of the natural. Now they're fighting Marines, and that's not what you want as the Protoss player, but Zoun is moving forward. He has the Warp Prism on the other side of the map. He wants to make it count. He wants to deal the finishing blow to his opponent. His army is that much stronger, and so a lot of SCVs needs to be pulled from DynaMite, but the force fields are very good, keeping those at bay. Stalkers and Immortals are keeping every sentry safe. Force fields are still available, Guardian Shield is still available, but DynaMite is losing so much. The sentries actually all fall to a single Widow Mine, and that's a little bit more important than it looks like. 2 more Widow Mines joining the battle. 14 SCVs have fallen for DynaMite, but overall, Zoun has lost quite the amount of army supply as well, and losing the sentries means a lot of gas loss, and in the end, in the units lost, the gas count is higher for Zoun, but the army is still that strong.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if Zoun can keep pushing. Well, there are a few Immortals here, but a few Marauders, but the Immortal and the Zealots are gonna give Zoun the ability to possibly keep this pressure up if he blinks those Stalkers back, letting those charge lots forward. Alright, workers getting come off the line.
And the workers ahead of the units will be important, but the force fields are perfect after warping in 2-3 more sentries. Perfect force fields are going to enable Zoun to take a very good engagement, now locking those SCVs behind the walls, and it's going to be a great engagement for Zoun. His Zealots are not quite finding the charge, and the units of DynaMite are getting some free pot shots, but as long as the Immortals are kept alive, this push will stay alive as well. 20 SCVs have fallen. DynaMite supply is plummeting right now, and Zoun is pushing into the high ground, blinking into the production, and GG gets pulled, and Zoun finally gets to match point.
Yeah, bringing it to 4-3. Great play by Zoun there. You know, being able to warp in those units on that warp prism and having just the Immortal and the charge lots to take on all of those Marauders is something that definitely helps Zoun take that victory.
Of course, once you lose the sentries, like, I was actually thinking, like, he has to warp in sentries again. His army is not going to be strong enough. Then I saw that second Immortal walking through the map, and I was like, okay, you can do this. Then 3 perfect force fields, Guardian Shield gets used on top of that, and it was just overall a much better fight for the Protoss player, actually abusing the mistakes that DynaMite made while pushing into his opponent's base, and kind of made it work through brute force, I'd say. Of course, the micro on the force fields, crazy good, but I'd say that Zoun was just slightly looking like the better player. Like, I will just throw it in like that. I would just throw the bomb. Like, I think that this last game kind of sold out Zoun as the better player overall in the series. I think the 2 most important games of the series have been won by Zoun, and now he's at match point, and quite deservedly so.
Yeah, both players playing very well,
Yeah,
as
indeed.
shown by the score. I mean,
Yeah,
we're-
exactly. Like
yeah.
it's a very, very even. Like I think that Zoun this far has a just like marginally um bigger advantage.
Yeah. Being able to squeak out, he's slightly ahead here. Even if he drops the game, he's got two chances, I guess, to win this. Whereas DynaMite has to win the next two games in order to take the series. And we'll see what these players do on Everdream.
And if there ever was a moment in which there could be actually something weird pulled off by DynaMite, I think it's this game. But let's get into introductions first. In the bottom left hand corner, currently at match point, you're looking at the base of the blue Protoss player, in from Korea, playing for Alpha X. It is Zoun.
And in the top right, the red Terran player representing DLG, trying to tie up this series. We have DynaMite. Both players opening relatively standard, but there is an SCV slowly making his way across the map.
Yeah, I think he's just for scouting.
It went in a little bit of an awkward direction. It could be it was looking for proxies. That's totally reasonable.
I think it's going for an NGB block. I think it's going for
Yeah.
an NGB block again. Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. Called it.
Yep.
So a slightly bit of annoyance. Like it worked very, very good on Simulacrum in game 2 of the series. So I guess like DynaMite just thought, why wouldn't it work again? This time the NGB will not get as healthy as before. So it will need to be cancelled sooner or later. But DynaMite is still threatening to continue it by keeping that STV over there. So forcing one probe to actually chase it down. And actually forcing one Zealot as the first unit. That's never a good thing for Protoss. With the Reaper already on the way. Well, almost on the way, at least.
Yeah, it may seem like having that Zealot, doesn't really matter, but it does slow things down. At this point, because the Stalker has to get Kona boosted out, and the Zealot is taken, and the Nexus, like we don't have the minerals to take our next tech structure, and we couldn't take our gas as early. And there's a lot of things that are really small that end up compounding.
Yeah. Also, actually, the impossibility to get a scout with the Adept early on, because you have to keep it home to actually kill the Reaper. Well, there is one Stalker, yes, but you're going to delay the Adept. So actually DynaMite could have gone for something more aggressive, and he actually is going for something very much aggressive, because the Adept this time cannot shade into the main. There are 2 supply depots that can be raised, and DynaMite has a double Rex opener over here. The wall gets raised, and this Zealot will not see the second Rex being dropped. Yup, he will not see it.
Yeah, Zealot pokes his head up, gets to the top of the ramp, and just outside of vision are the other racks and the factory.
Again a 2-on-1, and once again DynaMite is kind of melding everything that has worked for him this series. The 2-on-1 on Golden Wall worked just fine. The NGB block on the Nexus on Simulacrum worked just fine. And Zoun is just reverting to the standard once again. Blink Stalkers is going to be the opener. Best choice, of course. But he needs to be like very good at scouting from this point onwards, because if this 2-1-1 gets unscouted, it's going to be quite a mess. Actually,
yeah.
Is it going to be a drop?
Well, we don't have a starport yet.
Yeah. And we see a tech lab next. Yeah, it's going to be probably an all-in. Probably an SCV all-in, I think. With combat shields and a tank already being made. He's looking for a contain, I think. And Everdream is a very good map for a contain. It's very easy to get on this ramp next to the natural. You don't have to fight for it, and you can just drop bunkers and SCV and tanks sieged on top of that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if he just goes for the throat with that push, or if he tries to follow up by just containing and taking his own third. Yeah, the push will probably come once we have these upgrades finish, if it is going to come out. Hallucination is going to slowly make its way across the map for Zoun, so Zoun will figure out what's happening, unless these Marines can pick off.
They are trying to do so, and a lot of Marines are just in different position to get to... Oh my god, I have to check if he saw it. Oh, he did. He did see the third rocks. I don't know if he clicked on it, but he did see a fourth production structure in the making.
Yeah, he didn't see the tech lab, so he doesn't know. I mean, he can probably assume that there's a tech lab on that barracks because you want to get combat shields. And actually, he's
getting a third nexus over here. He's not getting any shield batteries. I don't know. I think that DynaMite is like a little bit of a clear advantage this time. NG Bay being dropped, starport on the way. The army of DynaMite is growing very, very strong. And don't be fooled by numbers. They may look close, 25 army supply to 41, but the army supply of Zoun is mostly unobserved. Like, just take a look at the units. It's 8 Stalkers. Stalkers are not very good against Marines. Not at all. Not even with Blink.
Yeah, I mean, unupgraded Marines maybe, but once they have stim, I mean, there's no way that 8 Stalkers are gonna hold off, the 28 Marines that DynaMite has.
Well, DynaMite is actually getting a third command center. I guess he's not really super committing into this push, but with these upgrades done, his army is just going to be very strong. I'm not even too sure. He's making medivacs right now. It seems like he delayed everything a little bit, but he now has all the upgrades. He basically needs to move out, and he is moving out. In fact, Caster cursed again.
Well, you called it earlier that he was going to make this big push. Now, Zoun does know that this is happening.
That is very good scouting.
Yeah, that observer right on top of the production structures. Gonna let him know, like, hey, this is what's going on. It's gonna slow the turn down a little bit with these Blink Stalkers.
And that's why I just absolutely love Twala Council Opener. Of course, this is not a good position to lose all of the Stalkers. Like,
no,
oh my god, this is big. This is big. Like, being able to get like 2 or 3 Marines, then blink away into safety is always important. And right now, Zoun wants to engage in the open. And against this army, that's not really what you want. Those Zealots could just explode, basically. 2 SCVs brought with the push. A steam gets used, but these Blink Stalkers trying to blindside his opponent, getting on top of one of the tank, but 2 are already sieged. Overall, Zoun getting a pretty good engagement over here, outside of tank's range, but every single unit is going to fall. The army of DynaMite once again has proven itself to be quite strong. Recall gets off the army of Zoun back home, and he cannot lose this nexus because DynaMite has a third command center back home. But I don't see how he will defend it. Zoun pulling the probes into the fight. A lot of steams get used by DynaMite. These medivacs are out of energy. Right now, the push can be killed in the end by Zoun. But once again, the cost has been so high. 12 probes die. But I guess as long as the Nexus stayed alive, it is not a game over for Zoun. As long as this 1/3 Nexus is still able to be producing probes, there is one chance for Zoun to get back into this game.
At the same time, there's a drop in the main, a couple mines going down, and some Marines and Marauders coming out and stimming. Zoun doing a good job of trying to warp in some Stalkers in response, but 8 workers down at this point.
It is looking very rough for the pros player right here. I think we're going to see a game 9 unless DynaMite makes some unforgivable mistakes. But I don't see Zoun producing anything at the moment. He's probably just kind of forced into an all-in. He's just waiting for his production cycles. And he's going to go for some damage. There are 4 sentries over here. As we've seen in game number 7. Sentries are quite a force to be reckoned with. Once again, we have seen a situation similar in Zen, Zoun forced to a lane because his opponent has the tech and he does not. Ghost Academy is on the way, Workers' advantage is in favor of DynaMite. Zoun is losing probes back home, he needs to make something big over here, and I don't think he has the army to do so. As he gets called by DynaMite into the fight, there are force builds, there are Guardian shields, and this fight is looking very much in favor of Zoun, but at what cost? Back home, 9 probes have died, and Zoun doesn't really have anything to back up this push. Defender's advantage kicks in. Zoun is defeated. GG gets called. And we're heading to game number 9 in this best of 9 series.
Yeah, intense game there, kind of very back and forth.
Intense.
But that last push, especially with the 2 Widow Mines in the medevac there at the end, getting the 8 and then a follow-up. I think ultimately it was 22 probe kills. Definitely giving DynaMite the advantage as long as he could hold.
Yeah, definitely. And overall, once again, like, DynaMite doing all these tiny little things that have helped him win 2 of the previous games. Like, is like melting every single thing he learned from this series into those last games to get his victory. But I think so will do Zoun in this last game here on Nightshade. We're reverting to the beginnings, to the first map of the series, won by Zoun. And let's see if he can do it again. Go say the players. We can get into this 9th game of this series. Thank you very much for contributing to the prize pool through the match arena. It makes a difference, trust me. We very much appreciate it, and the players, I think they appreciate you even more than we did.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Seeing as the players are the ones reaping the benefits of the prize pool, they certainly appreciate all of the donations that all of you have made. And we appreciate that you are supporting them, which allows us to cast wonderful games like this.
Yeah, and just have a very, very good time doing so. Here, spawning in the top left-hand corner as the blue Protoss, it is Zoun.
And in the bottom right, representing DLG, our red Terran player, trying to make his comeback, take game 9, it is DynaMite.
I don't think anyone wants to do something too crazy this time, but once again, every time I said it, DynaMite invented something different.
Of course, Caster's Curse indeed.
Yeah. It's such an ingenious player. Like, he just mix up so many different little openers, like little differences in his openers. They just, I think, give him an edge, at least in metagaming, in mind games. Like, look at Zoun actually looking at every single corner of the main base of DynaMite, for instance.
Yeah, he has to check to make sure there's not a second barracks, so there's not a, this, that, or the other thing. And all of these things kind of add up, and having a world of possibilities makes it so that your opponent starts second-guessing their decisions and throws them off their game.
And of course it's a Marine first to deny some scouting, and these can already be some metagaming. Like, oftentimes a Marine first to deny scouting is used to just try to sneak in some unexpected production. But can you really expect this from DynaMite? Can you really expect he's going to do this instead of something else? You cannot. And so Zoun is sending a second probe for scouting. And that already tells so much about how this series has gone this far. Because forcing actually Zoun to send a second probe for scouting, like, it really means that Zoun is pretty scared about what could come out of DynaMite, right?
Yeah, I mean, on match point, Zoun's trying to make sure he covers all of his bases and, accounts for everything. He doesn't want to die to some sort of crazy all-in. And as a result, he has to not be able to cut corners. He has to go in and scout.
Talking about cutting corners. Double Rex over here by DynaMite. He wants to stick to what has worked for him once again. With his tank out of the factory, he's going to be producing many more Marines and maybe start combat shield and steam to go for a timing attack as powerful as he did last game. Will Zoun be prepared this time? Let's see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Blink has started up, and it'll come down to whether or not Zoun can scout the push coming across the map.
I already really like these early robo being dropped over here by Zoun. He's not really committing into an early Nexus like most players at this time. Try to get a Nexus, and his first unit is definitely going to be an Observer. Like, the Observer worked so fine for him last game, helped him to just get in position with his Stalkers, get some damage. Of course, he took a pretty bad engagement, lost almost all of his Stalkers. With losing it in Phoenix, he's going to get the first scouting, and with the Observer, he's going to get confirmation. But DynaMite is already trying to move out. He has 2 tanks, a third one in production, he's sending SCVs, he wants to go for a contain. And Zoun will not be able to drop a third just yet. And he also lost 3 probes already this game, like, basically for free as well.
Yeah, and he had to send those over to kind of scout to confirm that nothing funky was coming out, but despite all of that, something funky's coming out.
And Blink is not done yet, so these Stalkers are not able to get on top of the tanks just yet. Now Blink is done, they indeed try to commit a little bit further. They blink backwards after getting one of the tank. This container will probably not be dropped over here by DynaMite. Zoun was prepared, but he still had to lose something for this. The third base still not up for Zoun. DynaMite needs to defend this tank. He doesn't really manage to do so, and he has to do this little walk of shame back home, chased by Stalkers. But one more tank is sieged, and DynaMite will indeed walk a little bit safer back home. With the Observer over here, oh my god, this tank is a little bit too... Okay.
Oh, slight misclick, I think. He killed an SCV instead of the tank.
I think so too. I think Zoun actually misclicked the tank, but overall, DynaMite is pretty safe right now. Zoun has gained an astounding amount of map control. And on a map such as Nightshade, this is so important. Like, being able to walk through the map pretty freely, it's very important on a map in which the bases are so separated one from the other and are so like vulnerable to multi-prong pushes. Being in the face of your opponent just overall avoid this issue altogether. Like, DynaMite cannot really walk out of his base right now with Blink Stalkers threatening. Maybe I don't know, like Medivacs cannot fly freely, tanks cannot walk through the map, and yeah, that's why I really like Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, I mean, Blink Stalkers are some of the most mobile units in the game, and a little bit of this Marine up here trying to get some damage. Just gonna deny mining for a second before the Adept kills it, but nothing too crazy happening.
Yeah. Zoun is in the face of DynaMite. He's going to see there is no third just yet over here, and he's probably going to try and stick there before anything can happen. He almost gets one tank. He was short of one Stalker to actually kill, actually 2 Stalkers to actually kill it. But he went that close, and he sees DynaMite expanding over here. These Stalkers still being very annoying.
Yeah, and I really like that play out of Zoun. Kind of poking and getting a little bit of damage here and there when he can. It also kind of helps pin DynaMite in his base while Zoun gets these Colossus out. At this point, he's got 2 Colossus at home, starting a Warp Prism out of the Robo as well. So we'll see if he intends to just continue massing up the Protoss ball, or if he's going to try to make something happen with these Colossi in the Prism.
Absolutely by the book play by Zoun, but when you play the standard this good, I guess you're kind of prepared for everything. And these Stalkers, once again, map control being at its finest, going to see the army of DynaMite moving out, just taking minor losses and preparing his units exactly where he needs them. +1 ground weapons is done, extended thermal lance is done, 2 Colossi are out. Of course, the Ghost Academy is out as well for DynaMite, so he has some kind of back up for this push in case everything goes awry. But Zoun is walking through the map as well. These Colossi are a little bit exposed, but getting high ground vision with the Observer is so much important. DynaMite scanning the army, not seeing the Observer, needs to walk back home, because Zoun has this Zealot warping right here in the third base of DynaMite. And Zoun is playing a perfect PvT this part. I really like how he's playing. Shockwave EMP is on the way for DynaMite, but Zoun can already get into these Raptors if he decides to do so.
Yeah, interesting. Both players trying to go for some sort of little backstab there while the Zealots were dropping there. There were 2 mines dropped at the third of Zoun. The medevac here picking the 2 mines up safely after only getting a few workers. But it's going to boost into the main.
I really like the Temporal Archives being dropped by Zoun over here. Of course, once you see Colossi, like the third Colossus is everything you want to get. You don't want to get any more, because DynaMite right now is forced to get Vikings, yes, because he needs a way to kill these Colossi for free. Oh my god, this Widowmine actually gets 8 probes. That's huge.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I think Zoun was focusing on the one in the main and just didn't see the one in the natural.
I think so indeed as well. And that's some interesting damage out of DynaMite. But then again, Vikings, as I was saying, cannot really fight anything that isn't Colossi. So once the Colossi are out, they're going to be that weight. And that's when the Archons come into play. Zoun very prepared for the chess-like part of this matchup. But this is the most important moment of all of the series. Shockwave EMP is done. DynaMite has the micro advantage in the fight, but Zoun has the powerful big guns, the lasers, getting on top of this army, and he does get so in a very interesting choke point. The tanks are going to fall basically immediately. A warping of Zealots on the other side basically sandwiches the army of DynaMite, but not a lot of Zoun survives after the engagement. The Vikings can land after killing the Colossi. And the first Disruptor is on the way, but this base has to be sacked. Meanwhile, 8 SCVs have died on the other side of the map. A round of Zealot is going to be warped in once again to be able to hold this. One Disruption Nova is trying to get on top of the army of DynaMite, doesn't get a lot of work done. +2 ground weapons is on the way, double Disruptor production, but DynaMite is in the third of Zoun. Perfect EMP gets all of these Stalkers, and I don't see how Zoun can get back into this, really.
Yeah, continuing to stream units across the map. DynaMite is keeping the pressure up. He's going to try to kill this third base, and sure enough, he will do it and take the series.
Gets cold. DynaMite wins 2 in a row in these last 2 games and manages to win the series, take it home after a scrappy back and forth series. I was saying Zoun was looking like the stronger player. I will stick with what I said, but in the end, DynaMite 2 very good games, very good engagements. I think what really made the difference was the engagement. Like, Zoun tried to go for something a little bit too weird in this last game. That engagement was a little bit off behind the rocks. Of course, he got the tanks immediately, but overall, I guess that DynaMite deserved this one last game, and the one before it, he won the series. He deserved to do so, and it was a great show of StarCraft by both these guys, really. Incredible players, incredible plays.
Yeah, it was a very back and forth series as shown by the score. I mean, we ended up having to go all the way to game 9, so very well done by both players, doing a great job of showing their skill and representing their teams.
Yeah. So before having to close this stream up, very sadly, because I wish this series would have gone on forever, really, I will just show you guys once more how you can actually support the scene by going into my screen. Over here, I just type !Matcherino into the chat. It will bring up this link. You just have to sign in with any form of login you want. Click over here on contribute, paste the coupon code, which is AXCOM71, and by clicking on contribute, you're going to be adding up 50 cents to the prize pool for free, improving the income of both DynaMite and Zoun after this incredible series they just showed us. So if you enjoyed this series, if you like what you have seen, just make sure to just do a little, like just use 30 seconds of your time to increase for free the prize pool and make those players happy, you know? Make them make their efforts worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, support the players, support the game, and support this hobby that all of us love together. So thank you very much to those of you who have already contributed, and thank you to those of you who are about to go contribute. And thank you to the players for giving us such a wonderful series to watch and cast.
Well, on an ending note, where can the viewers find you? If you have any Twitter, Twitch, or anything such as that, if you want to tell it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, you can definitely find me if you go to the Alpha X stuff. I am part of the Alpha X team, and you can find me there. But you can also find me at twitch.tv/itsf=ma. So that's ITSFEQUALSMA. And where can our viewers find you?
Well, I mean, I mostly cast over here on Alpha X SC2. I just love StarCraft, but you can find me on Twitter, Alex Acontistas, and you can find me, of course, on my Twitch, twitch.tv/acontistas as well. But yeah, I just hope we can see you guys chime in for some more of those Alpha X events, some more of those castings, some more of this very interesting series, and before getting into the the higher tier tournaments that are soon to come. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to the players, the organizers, the admins, and of course to Alpha X for allowing us to do so. And we'll see you at the next stream. Oh gosh, wrong thing. I'm going to raid Uzikodi. He's one of our players. He's a French Terran. Very good players, so make sure to say him hi from me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.